In the world of the paranormal, some names echo with a certain weight. They carry the energy of countless dark hallways and whispered voices from beyond. Dan Rivera was one of those names. He wasn't just a ghost hunter, he was a keeper of a legacy, a man entrusted with some of the most haunted objects in the world. At 54 years old, this U.S. Army veteran from Bridgeport, Connecticut had carved out a unique space for himself. He was the lead investigator for the New England Society for Psychic Research, or NESPR. This is the very organization founded by the legendary Ed and Lorraine Warren, the godparents of modern paranormal investigation. Rivera walked in their footsteps, but he made his own path. Rivera's journey into the unknown wasn't just a hobby, it was a calling he took with the utmost seriousness. He was personally mentored by the late Lorraine Warren, absorbing her knowledge, her techniques, and her deep respect for the forces they confronted. He dedicated himself to preserving the Warrens' work and their infamous occult museum. This wasn't about fame for him, though he certainly found it. He appeared on television, sharing his experiences on shows like Travel Channel's Most Haunted Places, and even had a hand in the production of Netflix's 28 Days Haunted. He understood the power of media to bring these stories to a wider audience, connecting with new generations of believers and skeptics alike. Beyond the television cameras and sold-out events, Dan Rivera was a man who genuinely wanted to help people. He quietly offered his expertise to families who believed they were living through their own private hauntings, offering guidance and compassion when they felt most alone. He bridged the old school with the new, using social media platforms like TikTok to promote his tours and educate followers about the paranormal. He had a knack for making the supernatural accessible, for talking about these chilling subjects in a way that was both engaging and deeply respectful. He was seen not just as an investigator but as a passionate educator who carried the torch passed down to him with honor. His reputation was built on a foundation of credibility and dedication. For over a decade, he dove headfirst into cases that would make most people run. He wasn't chasing thrills, he was seeking understanding. He believed in the reality of the spiritual world and the importance of documenting it responsibly. Dan Rivera stood as a bridge between the living and the dead, between the known and the profoundly unknown. His work was a testament to his courage and his unwavering belief that there is more to our world than what we can see with our eyes. His sudden departure leaves a void that will be impossible to fill. The summer of 2025 was supposed to be a triumph for Dan Rivera. His latest project, the Devils on the Run Tour, was a monumental success before it even began. Set against the historically charged backdrop of Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, a town soaked in the sorrow and energy of the Civil War, the event promised an unparalleled paranormal experience. It was hosted by ghostly images of Gettysburg tours at the historic Soldiers National Orphanage, a location with its own deep and tragic history. The very ground was considered a hotbed of spiritual activity, making it the perfect stage for what Rivera had planned. This wasn't just another ghost tour, it was an immersive 3-day event designed for the most dedicated followers of the supernatural. The demand for tickets was staggering, a clear indicator of Rivera's influence and the public's fascination with his work. Over 1,260 tickets were sold, making it a completely sold-out affair. People traveled from all over the country, eager to be a part of this unique gathering. The tour was the culmination of meticulous planning and a deep understanding of what the paranormal community craved: authenticity. Rivera promised to bring attendees closer than ever to the artifacts that defined the Warrens' career. The centerpiece of this entire event, the object that drew the massive crowds and buzzed with a dark energy of its own, was the infamous Annabelle doll. Rivera knew the risks involved in transporting and displaying an object with such a malevolent reputation. He was not careless. He took extensive precautions, treating the doll with the caution one would reserve for a biohazard. He had a special protective case constructed for Annabelle's journey. It wasn't just glass and wood, it was a spiritual containment unit. The case was sealed with 3 crosses, symbols of divine protection, and fortified with vials of holy water, meant to suppress any negative energy that might try to escape. Every detail was considered, every measure taken to ensure the safety of the attendees and his team. He was a professional and he respected the power he was handling. For 3 days, from July 11th to July 13th, the event unfolded as planned. Rivera led investigations, gave lectures, and shared stories from his years of experience. He was in his element, a charismatic and knowledgeable guide leading his flock through the shadows. The energy in Gettysburg was electric, a mix of historical sorrow and the palpable excitement of the attendees. The Devils on the Run tour was more than just a success, it was a landmark event in the paranormal field. No one could have known that for its charismatic leader, it would be the final chapter. The triumph would soon be overshadowed by a sudden and chilling tragedy. At the heart of the Devils on the Run tour was an object so notorious it has become a cultural icon of horror: the Annabelle doll. To the uninitiated, she might look harmless, a simple Raggedy Ann doll with yarn for hair and a painted-on smile. But to those who know her story, that innocent facade hides a history of alleged malevolence and spiritual danger. This doll is not a toy. According to paranormal lore and the extensive case files of Ed and Lorraine Warren, it is a conduit for something inhuman. It is the main attraction at the Warrens Occult Museum in Connecticut, where it is kept under lock and key for a reason. The doll's presence in Gettysburg was a rare and significant event. For years it has been housed in a specially constructed glass case in the museum, bearing a stark handwritten warning: positively, do not open. The decision to move it for the tour was not made lightly. Dan Rivera, as the steward of the Warrens collection, understood the gravity of taking Annabelle on the road. It required spiritual preparation, physical security, and a constant state of vigilance. The doll was the ultimate draw, promising attendees an encounter with a real-life haunted object, a brush with the kind of evil that Hollywood scripts are made of. The legend surrounding Annabelle is what gives her power, both in the paranormal world and in the public imagination. She is not believed to be possessed in the way a person might be. Instead, the Warrens concluded that the doll is manipulated by a demonic entity. This entity uses the doll's seemingly innocent appearance to deceive and terrorize, attaching itself to the object to gain a foothold in our world. It is a story of trickery and spiritual infestation. The doll itself is just a vessel, a focal point for a much darker force that has allegedly left a trail of fear and chaos in its wake for decades. For the audience at Gettysburg, seeing Annabelle in person was the fulfillment of a dark curiosity. It was a chance to stand just a few feet away from an object that has been blamed for terrifying paranormal activity, from moving on its own and leaving cryptic notes to physically attacking people. Its story has been sensationalized in the Conjuring universe of films, but for believers like Rivera and his followers, the threat it represents is very real. The doll was the undisputed star of the show, but it is a star that carries with it an aura of profound unease, a silent warning of the dangers that lie in meddling with the unknown. The chilling tale of the Annabelle doll begins not in a haunted mansion, but in the most ordinary of settings, a small apartment shared by two young women in the 1970s. The doll, a standard Raggedy Ann, was a birthday gift given to a nursing student named Donna by her mother. Soon after it arrived, Donna and her roommate, Angie, began to notice strange and unsettling occurrences. At first they were subtle. The doll would seem to change positions on its own, moving from a chair to the couch or from one room to another while no one was home. It was strange, but they tried to dismiss it as a prank or their imagination. The activity soon escalated, becoming more overt and frightening. The women would come home to find the doll in different rooms, sometimes with the door closed. On several occasions they found small notes written on parchment paper with messages like, "Help us." What made this particularly unnerving was that they didn't even own parchment paper. The final straw for the roommates came when a friend, Lou, who was deeply skeptical of the doll, was allegedly attacked. He claimed to have seen the doll levitate, and then felt invisible claws rake across his chest, leaving behind bleeding scratch marks. The playful curiosity had turned into genuine terror. Feeling desperate, Donna and Angie contacted a psychic medium. The medium held a seance and told them the doll was inhabited by the spirit of a young girl named Annabelle Higgins, who had died on the property years ago. The spirit, she explained, felt comfortable with the nursing students and simply wanted to be loved and accepted. Taking pity on the lonely spirit, Donna gave it permission to inhabit the doll. According to Ed and Lorraine Warren, who were called in to investigate shortly after, this was a critical and dangerous mistake. Granting permission, they explained, opened the door for something far more sinister. The Warrens' investigation led them to a terrifying conclusion. There was no ghost of a little girl. Instead, they determined that a demonic entity had fabricated the story of Annabelle Higgins to trick the young women. Its true goal was not to possess the doll, but to eventually possess a human host. The doll was merely an instrument, a Trojan horse used to gain entry into their lives and win their sympathy. The Warrens performed an exorcism on the apartment and took the doll with them for safekeeping. Even the drive home was fraught with peril, as they claimed the doll's influence caused their car to stall and their brakes to fail repeatedly, only stopping when Ed sprinkled it with holy water. The Devils on the Run tour wrapped up on the evening of Sunday, July 13, 2025. By all accounts, the three-day event had been a huge success, leaving everyone who attended feeling, well, thrilled and energized. As the crowds drifted away and the artifacts were carefully packed up, Dan Rivera and his team probably felt a real sense of accomplishment and honestly a bit of relief. The weight of managing such a massive event, especially one that involved the infamous Annabelle doll, was finally off their shoulders. Rivera headed back to his hotel in Gettysburg, ready for a well-earned rest after such an intense weekend. The rush of the tour was fading, replaced by the quiet, almost eerie calm of a hotel room. But what happened next is, wrapped in mystery and the kind of cold, official language you find in reports. At around 8 o'clock that same evening, a call went out to emergency services. First responders were sent to the hotel for what was reported as a medical emergency. Someone was already performing CPR on a man who matched Dan Rivera's description. The frantic efforts to save his life had already started by the time help arrived. Paramedics took over, doing everything they could to revive him, but sadly, their attempts just weren't enough. Dan Rivera, the energetic and passionate leader in the paranormal community, was pronounced dead right there at the scene. The news of his death sent a shockwave through the community, made even more intense by how eerily timed it was. He died just hours after wrapping up a tour with one of the most notoriously haunted objects in the world. The contrast was just too much to ignore and, well, speculation started almost immediately. Had the stress of the event finally caught up with him? Was it just a tragic, random medical event? Or was it something more? For those who believe in the power of the objects Rivera handled, his death felt like a chilling final chapter to the tour. A dark postscript maybe, written by an unseen hand. Officials described the circumstances of his passing as an unwitnessed arrest, which means he was found after his heart had stopped, with nobody there to actually see what happened. There were no obvious signs of a struggle, no trauma, nothing to suggest foul play. The scene itself didn't offer any easy answers. A man, seemingly healthy and at the very peak of his career, had just, well, ceased to be. The silence in that hotel room stood in stark contrast to the energy and noise of the event he'd just orchestrated, leaving his family, friends and followers with a sudden devastating loss and a whole lot of unanswered questions. In the immediate aftermath of Dan Rivera's tragic death, law enforcement and medical authorities began the methodical process of piecing together what happened. The Adams County Coroner's Office took charge of the investigation, and their initial public statement was carefully worded. They announced that Rivera's death was not being treated as suspicious. This specific phrasing is crucial in law enforcement and forensic circles. It means that based on the initial examination of the scene and the body, there were no overt signs of violence, foul play, or a struggle. There was no apparent external cause like an injury or an assault that would point toward a criminal act. However, not suspicious is a preliminary finding, not a final conclusion. Forensic pathologist Mary Jumbulik, commenting on cases of this nature, emphasized that this assessment is based entirely on the evidence available at the scene. It's a starting point, not the end of the story. The designation can change if new information comes to light during the later stages of the investigation, particularly from the autopsy and toxicology reports. For now, it simply rules out the most obvious criminal scenarios, shifting the focus of the investigation from a homicide case to a search for a medical or natural cause of death. The investigation now pivots from the scene of the death to the laboratory. The most critical piece of the puzzle will come from the detailed post-mortem examination. Investigators will also look into Rivera's recent activities and medical history, trying to build a complete picture of his health leading up to that final night. They will talk to colleagues and family to understand his state of mind and any potential stressors, physical or otherwise. Every detail, no matter how small, becomes part of the official record as they work to provide a definitive answer to his loved ones and the public. This meticulous, science-based approach stands in stark contrast to the speculation swirling within the paranormal community. While officials look for earthly explanations, a heart condition, a stroke, an aneurysm, many of Rivera's followers can't help but wonder about the unearthly. They question the timing, the proximity to the Annabelle doll, and the sheer improbability of it all. The official investigation must remain grounded in facts and evidence, methodically ruling out possibilities one by one. It is a slow and deliberate process, a search for a tangible reason in a case that, for many, feels deeply connected to the intangible. The key to unlocking the mystery of Dan Rivera's death lies with the forensic pathologists tasked with performing the autopsy. This detailed medical examination is the best hope for a concrete scientific explanation. The process is incredibly thorough, involving a full external and internal examination of the body. Pathologists will meticulously search for any sign of disease, injury, or abnormality that could have led to his sudden collapse. They will look for evidence of a catastrophic cardiovascular event, like a massive heart attack or a stroke, which are common causes of sudden, unwitnessed death in adults. A significant part of the autopsy process is toxicology. This is often the reason why determining an official cause of death can take so long. The coroner's office has stated that the final results are pending and could take anywhere from 60 to 90 days to be released. This delay is standard. A comprehensive toxicology screening tests for a vast array of substances, including prescription medications, illicit drugs, environmental toxins, and rare poisons. The lab must run numerous tests to rule out every possibility, a process that is both time-consuming and essential for accuracy. Until those results are back, any ruling on the cause of death remains incomplete. Forensic experts like pathologist Mary Jumbulik have noted that in cases like this, where a seemingly healthy person dies suddenly, the focus is often on the heart and brain. Underlying undiagnosed conditions such as hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, a thickening of the heart muscle, or a brain aneurysm can be silent killers, causing sudden death with no prior warning signs. The autopsy will involve a microscopic examination of tissue samples from major organs to find clues that are invisible to the naked eye. Every organ is weighed, measured, and inspected for any deviation from the norm. Despite the power of modern forensic science, there are rare instances where a definitive cause of death can never be found. In some cases, after every test has been run and every avenue explored, the cause remains undetermined. This can happen in cases of sudden adult death syndrome, where a person's heart simply stops for no discernible reason. While everyone hopes for a clear answer to bring closure, the possibility remains that the science may not be able to explain everything. This potential for an unresolved conclusion only adds another layer of mystery to Rivera's already haunting story. The news of Dan Rivera's death reverberated through the paranormal community with the force of a physical shock. He was not just a public figure. He was a mentor, a colleague, and a friend to many. The New England Society for Psychic Research, the organization he so proudly led, released a heartfelt statement that captured the depth of the loss. They mourned him not just as an investigator, but as a kind, passionate educator. Their tribute painted a picture of a man who was more than his public persona, remembering him as a deeply compassionate, loyal, and dedicated friend who carried the Warrens' legacy with profound respect and care. Fellow investigators and friends took to social media to share their grief and celebrate his life. Ryan Buell, another well-known figure in the paranormal field, posted an emotional tribute on Instagram that spoke to Rivera's ambitious spirit. Buell remembered him as a dreamer with big, bold, and sometimes ballsy ideas, a man who was always pushing the boundaries of what was possible in their line of work. He lamented Rivera's unfinished dreams, a sentiment echoed by many who felt that Dan was taken at the height of his creative and investigative powers, with so much more left to contribute. The outpouring of grief was not limited to his peers. Thousands of fans, people who had attended his tours, watched his shows, or followed him online, shared their own condolences. They remembered his accessibility, his willingness to answer questions, and the passion he had for his work that was evident in everything he did. Many shared stories of how he had inspired their own interest in the paranormal, or how his compassionate approach had helped them feel less afraid of the unknown. These tributes revealed the impact of a man who had built a genuine connection with his audience, making them feel like part of his journey into the shadows. Through these collective memories, a fuller picture of Dan Rivera emerges. He was more than the man who toured with the Annabelle doll. He was a United States Army veteran, a devoted steward of a paranormal legacy, and a compassionate soul who used his platform to educate and connect with people. He was seen as a pillar of the community, a steady hand in a field often characterized by sensationalism. The sheer volume and sincerity of the tributes are a testament to the life he lived and the profound void his sudden death has left behind. His legacy, it seems, is one of kindness and passion as much as it is of ghosts and hauntings. As the dust settles on the tragic events in Gettysburg, we are left with two parallel mysteries. One belongs to the world of science and reason. It is the world of the coroner's office, the autopsy report, and the toxicology screens. This investigation seeks a tangible physical cause for Dan Rivera's death. It will search for a faulty heart valve, a hidden aneurysm, or an unforeseen chemical imbalance. An explanation that can be written down in a file and bring a sense of clinical closure. The answers, though delayed, are expected to come from a microscope and a lab report, providing a logical conclusion to a human life. The other mystery belongs to the world Dan Rivera inhabited every day. It is the world of shadows, whispers, and unseen forces. In this world, the timing of his death is too precise, too symbolic to be mere coincidence. He passed away just hours after communing with an object believed to be a conduit for demonic energy. For those who walk this path, his death is not a question of what, but of who or why. Was he a spiritual casualty of a war he had fought for years? Did his proximity to such concentrated negativity finally take a toll that no medical instrument could ever measure? These two worlds rarely intersect in a way that satisfies both. Science demands proof that can be replicated and observed, while the paranormal relies on personal experience, faith, and the interpretation of signs. Dan Rivera's story now exists at the crossroads of these two realities. No matter what the official autopsy concludes, a segment of the community will forever see a supernatural hand at play. If the cause is a heart attack, they will ask what spiritual stress triggered it. If the cause remains undetermined, it will be seen as definitive proof of a paranormal influence that defies scientific explanation. Ultimately, the chilling tale of Dan Rivera's death becomes a reflection of the very field he dedicated his life to. It is a story filled with unanswered questions where belief and skepticism exist in a tense, perpetual standoff. His life was spent exploring the mysteries that lie just beyond our understanding, and in his passing, he has left us with one final, profound enigma. Whether his death was a tragic medical event, or a grim warning from the other side, it serves as a powerful and unsettling reminder that in both life and death, some questions may never have simple answers.